What's on the docket today? What will we document?
Hello and welcome to Doll Doc. Today, let's create another doll for our Freaky February series. I was thinking about some of my favorite classic movie monsters, and at the top of the list are vampires. I also wanted to create a character inspired by the Victorian era. And since Valentine's Day was just here, I felt her romantic look would fit perfectly. Let's start off with her face. After removing her hair in factory paint, I prepped her with 3 coats of Mr. Super Clear. Now she's ready for the placement of her features. You want to keep the color you first sketch with pretty light. That way it's easier to erase if you want to adjust anything. Even in this first layer, I go in and add some whites to the scaleras, and I put down a layer of pink on her lips. Now time for some contour. Since vampires aren't technically living, I chose to contour her face with blues and purples. I wanted her to have an eerie, lifeless complexion, while still being beautiful. I also bring a little bit of the purple into the eye sockets. With each new layer, I work on deepening my colors. I love using a little makeup brush for soft pastels because it helps to blend them out nicely. Don't forget to go in with your white again. I chose to give her some lovely deep blue eyes, and I'll be using several shades of blue to give her eyes more dimension. If you look at an iris in a picture, you'll see that they're never one flat color. Now let's give her some eyeliner. For this step, I try to get my pencil as sharp as I can. And let's go ahead and darken up those brows. Short little flicks will give you tiny hairs. I also add some purple soft pastel just to bring in a little more color to them. She needs some eyeshadow, and let's darken up those lips a bit. I had fun giving her different colored eyebrows than just natural. Now she needs some highlights on her eyelids and irises, as well as some on the lips. Now for some acrylic eye shines, and once they're dry, a layer of gloss varnish. Now I'm going to work on her hair. I made a wig cap for this doll, and I start by placing hair down at the front of the scalp and then creating the part. I wanted the hair at the front of the scalp down because I'll be pulling it back, and I wanted it to cover any of my weft glue seams. I've never tried doing a Victorian hairstyle before, so this will be fun. Now that she's got her beautiful wine-colored hair, let's start styling. I looked up a lot of reference pictures to see what kind of Victorian look I wanted to go with, and I found one that had a really cute pulled back and braided look. To secure her hair in place, I'm using sewing pins that will stick right into the head. After I've twisted both sides back, I then create 2 braids. These will then get pinned up top too. And I added in a few extra pins to look like she has some hair accessories. To set her hair a little more flat, I used some hairspray. And the pins, I didn't like the purple color they were, so I just went in with a red Sharpie. And for the little pieces I left at the sides, I'm going to curl them with the heat of my blow dryer. Now for her crinoline. The crinoline was the hoop skirt that went underneath all the fabric skirts. I cut out my circles, and I'm going to layer them too thick That way they're a little more sturdy. And to make sure they dried flat, I placed some objects on top of them. To put the hoops together at first, I thought I wanted to use ribbon, but then I changed my mind, and another idea that seemed a little more vampy came to mind. What if I put her crinoline together with some chains? This gave her a little more of the freaky factor. To attach the hoops to the doll, I made a fabric belt that I punched eyelets into and sewed on a snap. I also didn't like how the hoops looked after I'd removed the ribbon, so to make them more unified, I gave them a coat of black acrylic paint and Mod Podge that I mixed together. Now while that dries, let's work on her petticoat. I found some pre-ruffled trim and pinned it to some knit fabric I had, sewed in a gathering stitch. I'll make the gather the length of the circumference of the next layer up. Then I added another layer and sewed on a piece of ribbon that I'll tie in the back. Now time for her dress. And you'll need 2 sleeves, 2 back pieces, and 2 front pieces. I start off by taking both of the front pieces and hemming down the middle parts. Then I hem halfway down the middle of both back pieces. And when I say middle, I'm talking about where the pieces are going to meet up in the back. Then I hemmed along the bottom of all 4 pieces, glued down the neck with a little bit of fabric glue, before putting a front and back piece right sides together and stitching the shoulders closed. Now I bring both front pieces together, overlapping some, and I sew down the middle. I left though a V open at the bottom so it would split. For the sleeves, you're gonna want to fold them in half and line it up with the seam of your shoulder. Then I just hem the cuffs before folding it right sides together, sewing down the sleeves and the side of the top. Now for her skirt. I was so excited when making this dress that I forgot to record this part. So hopefully these graphics that I've made will help a little bit. Now for her skirt, you're going to want to measure from where you want it to set on the waist all the way down to where it's going to come at the lowest point. Then you're going to make your rectangle the width of whatever circumference you want the bottom of the skirt to be. Now for this graphic, to make it fit better on screen, you'll see that the skirt is actually flipped on its side. The arrow I have is going to mark the top of the skirt. So just kind of pay attention to that arrow when you're drawing your own patterns and sewing. I hemmed the bottom of my fabric before sewing on a bit of ruffled trim. I then sewed on 2 pieces of lace trim to give the skirt a more layered look. After that, I folded the top of the skirt down and left a little tube opening in the very top that I could slide a piece of embroidery thread through, so that way I could cinch up her skirt and tie it in the back. After the skirt layers are sewn, I then folded the skirt right sides together and sewed along the side edges, closing up the skirt. Now let's put her together. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up. And also, if you're not already, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on that notification bell. I'm so happy you've joined me for our Freaky February series, and make sure to come back next week to see what creepy doll I have planned next. Also, from the intro, did you take a guess who might be our next creation? If so, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and always keep creating, and I'll see you later.